University of the theology department. And as Elijah is studying in Pune Adventist University, he's doing his MMBA in Spicer Adventist University in business administration. He's just finished his undergrad degree few months ago. He'll be finishing it and he'll be going ahead. God bless his master degree. And also, he is into business. Business, we understand, oh, they calculate money, they're into finance. But the way he speaks and he's enjoying his time, I can see his time, he's enjoying preaching to the people. He went to Hyderabad just lately to do city evangelist, to do city working for God. He brought many souls to the heavenly God. Yet he's young, but he's dynamic. God bless him. And Elijah, we are just waiting to listen to you as we are going to enter the chapter, the call of Isaiah. There's a call of Isaiah as a prophet. There's call for us as well through Jesus, the Son of God, to come closer to God, to hear His word, and to proclaim His message to the world. Thank you, Elijah, for coming. God bless you abundantly. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. So, I would like to thank God for this opportunity. So, we will be learning about chapter 25 in Patriarchs and Prophets. It is titled The Call of Isaiah. So, before we directly go into the call, we have to set up the stage. We have to set context. So, the context is that, the chapter, it starts off with King Uzziah, who, who was a very successful king, and he ruled in the way of light, and he was blessed by God. He was always good. And things were going really well for Judah. He was the king of Judah. And and at this point, when he was ruling, when King Uzziah was ruling, Judah was at its highest point since the time of Solomon. So it was a very good time. It was a peaceful time. It was a time of prosperity and security. So, but then there was, unfortunately, King Uzziah was, as good as a king he was not good enough. And all this outward prosperity was not accompanied with spiritual revival. So the temple continued the way it was, as it was in the past years. It was just a series of processes and rituals instead of being truly spiritual to the people. The multitudes assembled to worship the living God, but there was pride and formality as in the part of worship. In a place where there was supposed to be humility and sincerity, pride and formality grew. So that was the way King Uzziah felt with his kingdom. As good as the time it was, there was peace and prosperity. There was no spiritual peace and prosperity. The spiritual state of Judah was declining. And yeah, this is something that we must be careful of in our lives. Sometimes we get caught up in our own success. We think that it is our own strength or our own power that has brought us to this stage in life where we are successful. But it was really God who brought us to that stage. God was the one who led us to that point where we became successful. And we must not be like Uzziah, who let it get to him and who thought it was his own. And he let Satan use that into and make it into a bad thing. So we must be mindful and we must always be clinging to God that we do not forget the way He led us. The greatest danger to the soul can come not during hardship, but in the comfort of success. Without humility and sincere devotion, even our strength can be the very cause of our downfall. Thus, we must always cling to God at all times, not in difficult times, not only in difficult times, but in successful times also. So, What did Uzziah do that was so bad? So we learned that in when God was revealing plans of the tabernacle, the sanctuary to Moses, he specifically mentioned a command. He said, only the Levites, the descendants of Aaron, can burn incense and be priests. So only the descendants of Aaron, who are the Levites, can be priests, and they can do the processes. They can do processes and all that in the sanctuary, in the temple. So now Uzziah, he comes back from a war. He is happy. He is thinking that it's his own power. And in his pride and arrogance, he enters the temple and he tries to burn incense on the altar, something that was specifically designated only for the Levites. But then, at that moment, as he's entering the temple and he's getting ready to burn the incense, Amaziah, who was the high priest at the time, and 80 other priests courageously went and tried to warn him. They went and stopped him. But Uzziah was in his own pride. He was engulfed by his pride. He thought as soon as he heard them saying, don't do this, this is not for you to do this, only for the priests. It's only for Amaziah and the priests to do this. He got angry. He thought, who are they to stop me? I am the king. I am the one who's winning all the battles. I'm the one who brought prosperity to Judah all this while. And so, who is this person to tell me what to do? So, in his rage and in his anger, he burnt the incense. And the moment that he burnt that incense, leprosy struck him. And the moment leprosy struck him, he that's when he realized what he had just done. He had just broken the commandment of God. He had just broken something that God had told him not to do. And leprosy struck him, and he was afflicted with leprosy, and he fled the temple immediately. And he never came back to the temple. So, and he was afflicted with leprosy until he died. Till the day that he died, he had leprosy. And this teaches us a very important lesson that we must always follow God's commands because no amount of past faithfulness or success or status can shield us when we deliberately break God's clear word. We must always follow God's commands. So that was Uzziah, and yeah, he was a king who ruled in prosperity, and but he did not have any spiritual revival. So his son was Jotham. Yeah, he was Uzziah's son, and he was the next in line to the kingdom of Judah. And just like his father, he made a few mistakes. You know, he made some similar mistakes. Yeah. So he did what was good in the sight of the Lord. He he walked in the way of the Lord. He followed the commands. But just like his father, he did not break the idols. He did not break the high places where they worship those idols. He left them and their high places and let the people sacrifice to them, which shows that even with a new king and new leaders, there was still no spiritual revival in Judah. So there was no spiritual revival at all in Judah. And the leader who was supposed to lead Judah into a state of spiritual wellness did not do that. He got engulfed in his own pride and he just left them. He thought that is not my part to do, even though it was. So Jotham, just like Uzziah, made the same mistakes. So now, as Uzziah was nearing his death in the final year of his reign, and this is the time when Jotham was slowly taking the reins of being king. A young man, a young man was being prepared. A young man of royal lineage was being prepared not to be a king or a political leader, but to be a prophet, to be a spiritual leader, and that was Isaiah. So yes, he was of royal lineage. And now Isaiah wasn't being called in a time of peace. Sure, there was political peace and comfort, but that was soon to go. That was soon to go away. It was going to be a time of war and strife. And in the time of Isaiah, he had to witness so many wars and so many sieges and all this stuff. And he even had to see the fall of the 10 tribes of Israel. So E.G. White writes about this. The dangers from without, overwhelming though they seem, were not so serious as the dangers from within. It was the perversity of his people that brought to the Lord's servant the greatest perplexity and the deepest depression. By their apostasy and rebellion, those who should have been standing as light bearers among the nations were inviting the judgments of God. Many of the evils which were hastened, many of the evils which were hastening the swift destruction of the northern kingdom, and which had recently been denounced in unmistakable terms by Hosea and Amos, were fast corrupting the kingdom of Judah. So we see that Isaiah's problem was not going to be the wars or the other kings, the enemy kings bringing their armies and all that stuff. It was going to be the people. It was going to be his own people who are going to be the problem. They were in a state of spiritual death. They were so they were so deep into the clutches of Satan that all the people cared about was getting more money, becoming more rich, getting more land and farms and all that stuff. They did not care about spiritual growth. They only cared about physical or fiscal growth. Justice was perverted. The poor were mistreated and abused. Leaders who were supposed to support the people, the leaders who were supposed to care and bring justice to the people, no longer cared about them. They turned a blind eye to all the suffering that they were facing. Sins were being normalized, and it felt like there was no hope anymore. And this was the time that Isaiah was called. And it must have been really scary for Isaiah because it was like they were almost spiritually dead. And E.G. White says that they were nearing the fate of Sodom and Gomorrah. They were really close getting the same fate, the same treatment as Sodom and Gomorrah did, which can just show you how bad the situation in Judah was. It was a really bad situation. And in such a horrible time where people didn't care about God or his principles, his commands, Isaiah, he was called to bear Jehovah's message. And this was not going to be a happy message because the people were not going according to the commands of God. It was going to be a message of warning. It was going to be a message of strife. So let's just for a moment, let's try to imagine how Isaiah would have felt. So I can see him walking around the temple, I mean, the mansion that he had because he was of royal lineage. I can see him overseeing the temple, and he's just wondering what could he do? What could he possibly do to give him courage to actually go against his people and actually tell him that what they're doing is wrong, that they're in a spiritual state of death. And, he would have felt that no matter how much he tried, no matter how much he spoke, how much he preached, that no one was going to listen to him, that they were so deep in sin that, they were not going to care about what he said. And maybe he would have thought that, oh, they're going to beat him up for being a messenger of God. And he definitely would have felt discouraged and scared. And there would have been questions just flooding his mind. All sorts of questions. Would he survive if he does this? What would happen to him? Or would they actually listen to him? And just when he felt discouraged, just when he felt down in his life and he felt hopeless, just then, um, yeah, when he was drowning in his fears, he had a vision, and the gates and the veils of the temple were opened, and he got to see the most holy place, which no one ever saw, no other prophet saw, only the high priest would see that. So he saw a vision of Jehovah sitting on the throne, being lifted up, and angels singing, Holy, Holy, Holy is the Lord of hosts. And yeah, and as he was seeing this vision, as he was as he was seeing the revelation of the glory and majesty of God, he was overwhelmed, not with a sense of uh, badness, but in a sense of purity, in a sense of the holiness of God. He was overwhelmed by all of this happening around him. And yeah, how sharp the contrast would have been seeing perfection, and when he saw himself, a sinful person who, and he was overwhelmed by the situation that when he saw perfection and when he saw Jesus in perfection and he saw himself, he looked at himself and he saw how sinful he was, how fallen he was. And he, he mumbled, he said to himself, Woe is to me, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of the people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. And it was in this divine presence of God that he finally saw how sinful he was. He clearly saw how sinful he was. It was like a mirror, and he looked at himself and he saw how dirty he was. And he knew that if, if it were left to him to go and preach the word, if it were left only to him, he could not finish the task. He was not capable of finishing the task. Right. Now he was getting confused. He was feeling bad. He's like, how can I do this? I was called to do this, but then now I see how imperfect I am. I cannot do this alone. And just then, a seraph came down from heaven, and it was sent to comfort him. And yeah, and that time only, when he was overwhelmed with all this confusion and his sinfulness, a coal was taken from the altar of heaven and placed on his lips, signifying that he was cleansed. He was no longer the old Isaiah who who was sinful, who was this dirty person who had all these sinful thoughts or any of that. None of that mattered now. He was a new being. He was to be a prophet of God. And that's when we get the verse from Isaiah saying, Whom shall I send and who will go for us? And then Isaiah responds, Here am I, Lord, send me. So now Isaiah had to go and tell the people the messages of God. He was to be a messenger of God. And even though, and every time he went out to preach, and every time he went out, it felt like for him, it felt like no one was listening and no one was repenting. No one was changing, even though he put so much effort in, even though he felt like he's doing everything that he can. It felt like nobody cared. Nobody cared that he was coming and preaching about this, and nobody changed. And in and then he goes and asks God, "How long, Lord? How long should I do this?" And this wasn't an anger or frustration that, in a selfish way that no one's listening to me, Lord. What is this? Why are you doing this to me? Nobody cares about what I'm saying. But it was in a state of sorrow. and in a state of sorrow that they are not listening to God and they are missing out on the joys of being with God. He was burdened with glorious purpose. He was burdened that nobody's listening to him and nobody's listening to the words of God. But as we know, his works were not in vain. Yeah, his works were not in vain. God promised him that there would be a remnant people, a people that follow the words of God and that keep his commandments. He was promised that there would be a remnant. And it was Isaiah's role to plant the seeds. He was to put the seeds in place so that people would be patient. People would grow. So it was not his role to be the harvester, but to be the planter. He had to be patient with these people and he had to help them grow. But there were heavy judgments that would come. There were going to be so many wars. There was going to be the war from Syria and from Assyria, and he got to see Assyria destroy Israel and scatter them all across the earth. And he this would have been very discouraging for him. But every time that he felt discouraged, he had divine assurance. God was always there, just with him, saying, I am still there, I am still in control. And he had heavenly assurance. And one of the verses read, which in it shall be a tent, and it shall return and shall be eaten, as a tale tree, as an oak, whose substance is in them, where they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. And every time that he read these words or these were revealed to him, it brought courage to Isaiah because for him, he knew that if God was with him, no one could be against him. It didn't matter that the people were going to beat him up or any of that. All he cared about was that God was with him. And, it is quite similar for us. We also are in a similar situation where people are so people are so deep into their own success where now the world it doesn't care about religion or any of that stuff anymore. People care about getting more and more money and being more successful and all that stuff. We live in a world that sin is so normalized that it no longer shocks us. We see murder and all this stuff everywhere, and it's just so demoralizing. And the situation is so bad right now. The right is called wrong, and wrong deeds are celebrated. Justice is twisted, and those who often speak the truth are mocked and ignored. They are they are hunted also. You know, so there's a lot of persecution going on and all this stuff for us. But God is calling us, just like Isaiah, to to preach unto these people. Maybe it is not our role to do the harvest for some people, but it's to plant a seed in them that God can nourish them. Just like Isaiah, God is still calling us. He's looking for people who will say, here am I, Lord, send me. He's not calling the perfect because there is no one perfect. He's calling those who are willing. Just like Isaiah, how he was willing, he is calling all of us to be a part of his mission, to be a part of spreading the gospel to those who don't know about it. And we had a similar experience this summer for us. Like personally, I had one. It's so a bunch of us, around 80 to 100 of us, we had the opportunity to go to the city of Visakhapatnam in Andhra, and we had to go and minister to them. So we were divided into partners. We had partners, and we all had specific zones in the city. So the point was that we would go to our zone every day and we would try to talk to the people and we would try to bring them to the meetings, the public meetings, which were going to be held in 3 weeks. So we would go there every day, and there were days that me and my partner, we both felt like, does God really care about what we're doing? Do the people care about what we're doing? Do we really have God's blessing on us? And every day we would go pray. We would pray with the people, or we would be praying as we're walking, and we would be giving out handbills, trying to talk to people, and trying to get to know more about them, trying to give them Bible studies. And, every day we would go out, and there were days that we felt like it was not worth it because everywhere we went, uh, some people were nice, most people were not nice, and some people would threaten us. They would threaten to beat us up, or, they would take our handles and throw them in our faces. So it really felt really discouraging. But on every step of the way, God was there with us, and we really felt His presence. God was there, and every time we felt discouraged, He was there giving us assurance. He was reassuring us with every step. And that's the kind of God we serve. He's not a God that is going to leave us in a time of trouble, but He's going to walk us through. All we have to do is take one step, and He will take 100 for us. So, that's the kind of God we serve. He is going to take care of us. He really does care about us. And when we're feeling discouraged, He gives us reassurance, just like how He did for me and just like He did for Isaiah. So today, God is calling each one of us to, to be the light bearers, to carry His message into this dark world and to speak with love and to live in a way that reflects His character and His love. So, what will our answer be? Yeah,
Thank you, Elijah, for the message. Could you please close us with a prayer too?
yeah. Shall we pray? Dear Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, for this wonderful morning that you've given to us, O Lord. Thank you for helping us see this day. And please, O Lord, please help us to be like Isaiah, who willingly accepted your call to be a messenger and a light bearer, O Lord. Please be with us. Guide each one of us, O Lord, in whatever troubles we may have. Please be with us and show that you are still in control of everything that is going on, O Lord. Please be with us, O Lord, and that was in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.